Lolita, light of my life, fire of my loins, my sin, my soul, Lolita, the tip of my tongue, taking a trip of 3 steps, down the palate to tap at 3, on the teeth, Lolita. She was low, playing low in the morning, standing 4'10" in one sock. Lola in slacks, she was Dolly at school, she was Dolores on the dotted line. But when she was in my arms, she was Lolita. Do you know what this book is and what this author is conveying to you? The only way to do deep investigative pieces and get good intel on organized crime, international crime, really big crime, where we're talking about millionaires and billionaires, is you do have to be aware of, even if you can't fully understand many languages, dialects, literature, and sometimes music, and you need to be able to completely dissociate, separate yourself from yourself, and just observe quietly. Do all of this without, of course, trying to get recruited into the CIA. I recommend not going to an East Coast school, but definitely not Utah, but I digress. What they're saying in that song is this is a grown man, and she's standing 4'10" in one sock. She's benign, she's innocent, she's doing a typical thing that a girl would do in the morning, getting ready for school. She has one sock on. This book was written in 1955. Those are the opening lines, and you see the book in the background and the words, on a lady. I actually don't think that person's a victim. It is about a man who becomes obsessed with a 12-year-old girl. So obsessed, in fact, her name was Dolores Hayes. Her mother was Charlotte Hayes. They're American. He becomes so obsessed with her that he marries the mother. The mother dies so that he has full control of this girl. And the opening is meant to shock you because it is a grown man, clearly lusting after a 12-year-old, but this isn't a book about pedophilia. This is a book satiring America and what it's like to be able to do heinous things and just play in your face. It's all about being in plain sight. And this book has taken on a lot of different meanings and interpretations. But another element of this book is about consumerism, capitalism, road trip culture, hotels, motels. There's lines in it that talk about how easy it was to deceive Charlotte, her mother, because she found him to be just European and sophisticated. It's about how profoundly superficial and dumb Americans are, how easy they are to deceive. When he talks about her being low, Dolly at school, Dolores officially on paper, he's referring to her interactions with the outside world, that she was just a schoolgirl, all of these things, because she was still just as much a part of the world as she was his. But he says, she was Lolita in my arms. That was the context that he had her in. But she was able to do all of these things because Americans wouldn't care. You can just do these things here. The third line reaffirms this. Did she have a precursor? She did. Indeed, she did. In point of fact, there might have been no Lolita at all had I not loved one summer a certain initial girl child. The other thing, right? We know that Lolita is more than just this book, even though it's very interesting, right? And how ironic that he talks about how easy it is to play in the face of Americans because they're superficial. And then there's accountability, which includes the book, and social media and content creators are destroying it, right? They're doing exactly what Lolita the book says. But nevertheless, his plane was also called Lolita. And we do have these images of this clothing here. That is known as Lolita style clothing that became popular in Japan.
And this Lolita type of style is very popular. For some, it's just a popular style. For some, it is a kink. It is very prominent in age gap, like relationships, call girl type, sugar daddy things, I guess you would say. But obviously not always a crime. If you were around in the 90s, you'll remember JonBenet Ramsey. This sort of Edwardian, Victorian, lacy frilly style is very popular in pageants. And the JonBenet Ramsey case also, they continuously refer to it as the Lolita trope. Now, in 2013, more recently, we get Lana Del Rey's Born to Die album, and it is very heavily influenced by Lolita, the culture, but the book very specifically. So, for example, we get the song Off to the Races, which, if you were to play it, sounds like an Epstein girl. In fact, the opening lines to this are, light of my life, fire of my loins. And we know it takes place in New York City. They're talking about Cipriani's basement. They are talking about Coney Island, Rikers Island. And she refers to him as an old man. And he's tough, but she loves him. And the album cover, the song cover for this, and the place the music video takes place, is a series of motels. So very, very similar to the novel Lolita. In that song, it is a positive experience from the woman's perspective. This one is actually called Lolita on the same album, and it is very clearly a girl and a man. She talks about kissing in the DARK, her fruit punch lips, and she talks about how she's not going to be skipping rope anymore. She's going to be feeling the heat even when the sun goes down with him. And so even though there's all of these connections with Lolita to Epstein, and even though there's this New York thing, this leaves questions, not answers. And the bloodthirsty, money-hungry content creators that are trying to engage Epstein could take this information and do something with it. For me, I put a pin in it. I see if that's relevant. But just like in that one image, she was Dolly at school. I've seen plenty of content about how, oh, she had a doll. She was just a girl. In the same way that I see people absolutely running Mark Tramo, Mark London through the mud because they got funding from Epstein. Hundreds of thousands of people probably got funding from this network. We want to rule out what is not salacious and create an investigative timeline for accountability. Knowing what to throw out is as important as knowing what to keep in. But I do find this book, the story behind it, and the way that it's influenced culture very interesting. And of course, you can get it at the link below. And what I find most fascinating is that this book now has a line from it being debated in the exact way the book frames Americans and American culture.
Intelligence agencies know this about the United States population. It is well known in a lot of literature how naive and superficial Americans are. Now, how this plays in with Epstein as well, just look at the content that's being created around it. They also know that in America, you are just going to blame God or go down a crazy conspiracy pipeline if something is that bad. So they really can, in fact, play in your face. And it's also important to know that when you're looking at organized crime, the manner and means of the way that an enterprise might operate, particularly after a conviction, might change some, but they typically branch off, meaning that there isn't a beginning or an end to the Epstein files. They're actually still occurring. And do you want to know who the worst people in the Epstein files are today that we know? It's content creators. I said you have to separate from self. That's a hard fucking thing to do when you're looking at bad crimes. But if you look at every page as an indictment, as it implicates somebody in something it's not, you'll never get to the truth. In fact, you have to look at every single page and try to exonerate. You need to hold. Then, when you're implicating, you can hold your accusations, right, to scrutiny that might actually go somewhere. That's not happening in the United States. The United States isn't collectively smart enough to do that.
So anyways, I find it deeply ironic that content about or pertaining to the book Lolita is actually being utilized in the exact way that the book Lolita describes Americans, is just capitalism, go, 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 nobody looking for the facts. But I did attach this book for a different reason. I'm almost entirely demonetized due to censorship, but by attaching a product from the TikTok shop, it ensures that I do not profit solely from making content about Epstein. So I'm forfeiting that pay because I think at the end of the day, that is such a huge problem with the content we're seeing. If I want to delve into more, I would have to do a part 2, but again, I'm busy.